And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba, episode 372. I have a returning guest to the show, a good person I get to chat to once in a while on behind the scenes in the DMs and whatnot. He enjoys golf. He enjoys the Warriors and the other Bay Area sports like the A's. But you can find his work over at RotoWire and the wonderful Sunday Night RotoWire podcast with Jeff Erickson. The one, the only, Scott Jenstad. How we doing, my friend?
Good, Bubba. How are you? I appreciate you having me on. I was excited to do it. I know we talked about doing it in April and it was just kind of packed and busy. So I'm glad we found a day to do it. I'm looking forward to talking to baseball.
Yeah, always fun talking with you. So looking forward to it. Things are good. Before we get started, why don't you remind everybody where they can find you and your other new project you're working on?
Yeah, so we have the Sunday night / Monday morning, depending on what part of the country you live in, fantasy baseball podcast at RotoWire. Me and Jeff Erickson, kind of talking about fab every week, talking about all the injuries on the weekend, which has been kind of a ton of them recently. So it's been there's been too many injuries to talk about, but kind of the way it's gone so far in 2021. And we just talk about the weekend, talk about kind of preview the week before, and then Jeff and I are also doing a golf podcast called Gaming Golf on RotoWire with Jeff Ritter from Morning Read, who used to he's been a golf journalist for like 20 years, so he's got a lot of cool insights and stuff. So talking DFS, talking betting, kind of talking general golf stuff. So it's been fun. We're just kind of starting to get that going. I'm starting to get a feel for it, and I think it's been fun. And so we're just kind of trying to build that audience and see how that goes, and see if the desire for more golf is there. I know there's a lot of stuff out there right now, but it's been fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but it's good because it's funny. 3, 4, maybe 3 years ago, even it was all fantasy baseball, fantasy football, and then some other stuff. There was no golf, but now it looks like we all love golf. It's all out there, so it's pretty fun.
DFS has just changed that world so much. Yeah, I mean, it's just so perfectly built for golf. There's some people. I actually play in an auction golf league that's season long. That's really fun, but for the most part, it's I know it's pretty heavy DFS, and the one and dones are becoming really popular too. So it's been fun to see it pick up.
Yeah, it's fun. In some of the chat rooms, I've run. The guys came in there to play football and baseball, and they're like, "Oh, we'll try golf. You guys talk about golf," and they're like, "This is the best 4 days ever." Like, I get to put at least 2 days of sweating.
Yeah.
Or your other sports, it could be over within like a blow up inning for your pitcher or something. Yeah. So it's like at least I get like a couple days of entertainment out of this. So
although as a Daniel Berger owner this weekend, I think it might be a 1 day tournament for me too this weekend.
You and me both, my friend. You and me both. That was one of those that just stung quite a bit. But let's talk some fantasy baseball here.
Yeah.
Before we get to the recent news, as you mentioned, it's always injuries because that's all we have these days. We're at the quarter point of the season, and it's kind of fun to look at which players to add and drops and all these different things going on with injuries and all the good stuff. But there's more to it than just that. There's like starting to look at your stats. They're starting to see where you're at in the standings. And you're a very, very experienced NFBC player. So you've seen it all, pretty much done it all for the most part, even though it always seems like there's something new. But what kind of approach do you take now that we're at the quarter mark with your teams, trying to like kind of maybe gain steam or maintain where you are, stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a really good topic because it's something that I go into pretty deeply. I at like the quarter point, halfway, and then like 3/4 point. I take a pretty deep inventory of I have like 4 NFBC teams. I take a look at all of them, both of them respect to like where I am in categories. And it's important to know like if I'm 10th in home runs, but I'm 3 home runs from 3rd. That's a lot different than if I'm like 10th and buried. So it's really key. I think a lot of us look at points like, oh, I have 5 points of home runs is a problem, but like looking at actually where you are in each category is really important, right? There's a lot of we're only a quarter of the way in. There's a lot of stats that are bunched up, that kind of thing right now. So it's important. I take a look at each team, kind of see what categories I need, what positions I'm weak in. It's also important to look at maybe your guy in the 14th round that you liked 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago is not an every week play. So maybe that's a guy that you want to platoon, you want to do some fringe stuff with. So I think it's important to look at guys and kind of make sure that you're not taking your draft valuation and doing it now because so much has changed. There's some players like that I notice I'm starting every week and just not even thinking about it that much. And at the quarter point, I kind of try and figure maybe it's time now for me to bench this guy. Maybe thinking about talking about dropping somebody or at least adding someone to platoon. And then I also look at where I'm at the standings, and I kind of look at where I am and what I could do the next quarter. So I'm like, if I'm 40 points behind the league, like I'm not going to gain those 40 points the next week. So I think it's important to kind of figure out by, say June 1st, I want to cut that lead in half. I want to get, I want to make a move in home runs and RBIs and kind of figure out where I need to be. So I kind of try and set miniature goals for the next 6 to 8 weeks and try and figure out. So I think it's important to take small chunks and try and figure out, because it can be overwhelming if you're really far behind to like you can't gain that many points in a quarter. If you build yourself a big hole, it's a problem. But you if you're 30 points back, gain 10 points before June 1st, then figure it out. So I really do a lot to kind of try to figure out where I am, where I need to go, and where I want to get in the next 6 to 8 weeks. I'm looking at it in kind of chunk quarters of the season.
That's a very good point because, you're not going to gain it all at once, but you start chunking away at it. And, there's been a lot of stories. I know Rob Silver talks about it and others. He was almost in last place or 10th place or something with the year he won the main event. And then you just keep plowing away at it type thing, like you're saying. So that's a very good point because a lot of people are already like, it's football season. They're already like, screw it, I'm out. It's football season. I'm like, no, you got a long ways to go here. And you also brought up another good point that I made a joke about the other day is it is still so bunched up because I've been getting crushed like many others with the Giolitos and the Castillos of the world that are just like blowing up ratios. Yep. They both had kind of decent starts from a statistical standpoint. Like Giolito had a great start.
Yeah, he did.
But Castillo's it statistically worked out. Yeah. And all of a sudden you jumped like a few points in each thing real quick just by 2 good starts, saying you could maybe move some more as the season goes on. You're not completely dead in the waters, as some would think. So that's a very, very good point. I got to ask you this question because I know you talk about Sixto Sanchez a lot on your show. But I want to ask you because you've held on to him, but you have your philosophy you've talked about on there as well. When do you finally say, you know what, I can't keep holding these guys with all the injuries we have? And everyone's case by case differently. I get it. But when do you start saying, like, you know what, I need this roster spot for maybe platooning with that guy I ran out every week that I maybe shouldn't run out every week now?
Yeah, so if it was June 1st and he had the injury, I would have dropped him. Like with 4 months left and he was out 2 months, I would have dropped him. But the start of the season, I had made I really like him, so that kind of goes into a lot of it. I think he's really a fun guy to watch, and I love the strikeout upside. Plus, he doesn't walk a lot of guys. I really like that young guy. My theory on him has been if I hear about a setback, I'm dropping him. So right now he's throwing from further distance, kind of backing up. They're talking about June. So if I'll go for that. And but if I hear about one setback at this point, then he's a drop at that point. If they're like, he's not going to pitch for 2 weeks, it's suddenly I got to do it at that point. It's hard right now. Like my problem, I think, with him is going to be when he comes back, how much does he throw? Like if they're going to bring him back and like throw 2-3 innings for 3 weeks, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I missed 3 months. So it's like, it's going to be tough. But I mean, if they take 3 full months of him, I don't know if we weren't going to get 108 innings at him anyway. So, if we're thinking 120, 130 innings, if he's going to be healthy, they're going to, probably skip a bunch of stuff. Maybe we get that compacted into 3.5 months and maybe you get 90 to 100 innings. And I think it still works out, but it's at the edge right now. I mean, it could turn out to be a really bad hold. And if he has a setback, like suddenly I wasted a roster spot for 2 months. So there's been a couple weeks where I thought about it. I had 1 week where I had a bunch of injuries and he was right on the verge. And if there had been someone I really wanted, he probably would have been that cut. So I'm holding for right now. But it's close. It's not like a month ago. I was like, I'm going to wait till he comes back. And now it's if I hear any sort of setback, he's gone. Or if I suddenly get a bunch of injuries at once, which I had, and then I kind of survived that, and a few guys are back. It needs to be pretty soon. We're at May 20th, and he's probably going to be pitching by the middle of June for it to work out.
Yeah, no, and I just used him because you've mentioned him a lot. But like, there's Wander Franco is a guy that people are stashing. What if that's another month or two? Is that really worth the hold type thing? There's so many of those kind of questions. They're going to be like, oh, we're calling up Wander Franco, and now it's going to cost you a fortune to bring him back. That just never fails. So it's an interesting dynamic. But the other thing I would suggest, or I should say, when you're trying to chip away at some of these points, as you said, do you prefer focusing on certain stats over others? Well, do you think that certain stats are easier to get than others, I should say? Because, ratios are ratios, but do you attack certain things differently?
And it's a good point because you can get in the problem like it's been 8 weeks or whatever, and you're like, oh my god, I'm getting killed in steals. All of a sudden, you throw a bunch of steals guys in there, and you start to tank in home runs and RBI. So you have to realize that we got a lot of time left. So you want to chip. If it's steals you're behind, you want to chip away. You don't need to get 3 guys that all they do is run and they don't do anything else, because then you're just going to hurt yourself elsewhere. So it's kind of, I think chipping away is a good way to say it. You want to take a chunk, but I think you got to be really careful. Ratios and batting average are the ones you really don't want to fall behind in, because it's just so hard to catch up. Because it's just, if you get behind in steals or wins or saves, you can try and find a way to just amass those. Like if you can wins or Ks, throw a bunch of 2-star guys. If you get behind in ratios, like suddenly it's just hard to find guys for ratios. You can find guys for everything else, but if you get behind in ratios, you're picking up guys, and all of a sudden you get a Gomber outing or a Daniel Lynch outing or Logan Gilbert. Like, oh, I'm going to pick up Logan Gilbert to catch up in ratios. Like, that's worked out terribly. Rookie pitchers have been a disaster getting called up so far. It's been rough. But so I think that if you're behind in ratios, that's something you got to focus on right away. Make sure that you're not throwing guys out there that to just get stuff. If I'm behind in ratios right now, that's big time. My focus the next 2 months is try and get to a point where at least I'm middle of the pack, and then maybe attack everything else. But those ratio categories, that batting average categories, stuff that I just don't want to get behind in.
Yeah, the ratios ones, like in the pitching ratio side of it, it's almost like I almost want to get pickier with who I'm pitching, but at the same time, then you might be losing out on Ks and wins. It's like such a tough dynamic to put out there, but it's like the dilemma we had this week. Luis Castillo, do you start him in the 2-start week? Well, he survived the first one, and you were tweeting it out, and it was true. The balls that were in play were hit extremely hard, so it's like where are we sitting on this one?
Yeah, someone was like, oh, he got BABIP to death, and I looked it up. I'm like, well, he five of the 6 hits were over 95, and 3 of them were over 100. Like, he was striking guys out and getting swings and misses, which is really good because he was not getting that for the first 7 starts of the year, but still get up a lot of hard. I mean, it was like, you're like, oh, it was really good. And then you're looking, you're like 9 base runners in 5 innings. So suddenly it was like, well, a lot of good and better than it was, but still not what we're looking for from a second round pick.
Yeah, it was more glass half full for once, but it's still like we're barely half full still. So it's for come on, let's go with that. But yeah, that's a fun discussion. I'd be curious to see where we, if this conversation takes place in like 4 or 5 more weeks and where we sit on that kind of chipping away and everything, or panic mode setting in situations.
Oh, at some point it does. And if you play in like an overall competition, I think at some point you have to make a realistic decision that I'm not going to compete in the overall. I really got to focus on my league, and you can kind of be sneaky there. Like if you're whatever, you're 20 saves behind getting a point, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm not competing for the overall. I can kind of stick where I am in saves and focus everywhere else. Where if in overall, you got to keep getting saves. I usually wait till June before I really look at that. I want to. So much of the money goes to an overall competition. You want to still, keep that in mind and try and find some balance there. But make sure if you do play an overall and you're kind of out of that in June, that you really focus on league, because you can make runs in league that you don't think about, because you can kind of be really sneaky with the points there and figure out where you can gain and where you can't, to kind of really attack certain categories.
100%. It's a very, very good point. And obviously, we won't go into the depths of it, but obviously different in 15 and 12s as well. So you can mix and match stuff there, and we'll kind of get into 15 and 12s later, but we'll save it for that. Let's talk about some recent news here, and it's not the fun stuff, but maybe we can speculate on some stuff at the same time. Mike Trout's out 6 to 8 weeks, calf injury. You're not dropping Mike Trout, I don't think. Like, you're just not doing it. But unless you're super desperate, would you ever see a scenario where you're dropping Mike Trout?
Out 8 weeks on May 20th. No, it have to be insane injuries, but I still think I'd probably eat some zeros or drop. I mean, there's so many other guys. If you have a bunch of injuries, you could drop instead. Out 8 weeks, you're getting him back. Let's go at the end of that 8 weeks. You're getting him back at the All-Star break. Like, that's 2.5 months of Mike Trout. Like, there's no way I'm getting rid of that.
Yeah, that's still amazing. He might not steal, but we weren't really counting steals to begin with. So we're good there. But the question I have here, the outfield situation, like Taylor Ward should get much more playing time. He went deep on Thursday. Do you think or should you go aggressive at Ward? Do you think we maybe get Adell or Marsh? Like, how would you approach it going into Fab this Sunday with the Angel situation?
It's weird. In one of my main events, I kind of had a dead spot, and there was nobody to really pick up, and I threw Adell in there, obviously not knowing that Trout was going to get hurt, just because he got dropped the week before. I'm like, I'm just going to throw a couple bucks on him. You never know what happens. Maybe Taylor Ward hits a slump. Maybe someone gets hurt. I didn't think it was going to be Trout, obviously, but I don't know with Adell. I don't know if he's shown he's ready. Everybody's like, oh, he's got the 4 home runs and 2 stolen bases in AAA, and he's hitting a little bit, but he's hitting 231 with a 37% K rate. And the K rate's really the problem. What was it, 42% last year when he got called up, and he struggled last year. And there's a lot of guys really good players that come up and struggle. I mean, it happens. I mean, look at Mike Trout. His first time up, he really struggled, but I just think he's got to show a little bit of improvement in that care for the Angels to want to bring him up. And if they really wanted to bring him up, the second Trout got hurt, they just would have brought him up the next day. They didn't do that. Brandon Marsh was a guy that if he gets called up, stolen base, if you need stolen base, he had 18 stolen bases in 2019 in Double-A, but they both feel pretty raw to me right now. I think I don't know who they're going to call up first, but Taylor Ward is the guy. I mean, he's 27. He's playing every day. You look at 2019. I know that the ball was insanely juiced in the minors in 2019, even more than the majors. But 27 home runs, 11 stolen bases. Like you can see some speed power combo. So far, he's hit some home runs, but not really hitting for a lot of average and 55 plate appearances or so. But he seems to be a guy that get playing time, but to be honest, he doesn't really excite me a lot. He just kind of feels like a journeyman guy that if you need at bats in a deeper league, sure, but I'm not really going aggressively to attack him.
Yeah, he's the deeper league idea. It's I love the comment you make on your Sunday night show with Jeff. Is in a 15-team league, the outfield is just like a barren cupboard. It's so bad. Yeah. Like every Thursday or Friday when I start trying to plan my fabs, I'm just like I Yeah,
it's bad. I had a week 2 weeks ago where I needed 2 outfielders. I had 2 guys, like Alex Dickerson got hurt and someone else, and finding 2 I was like, oh my god, this is it. Just you're picking guys that play 3 times a week or guys that play every day that are terrible. Like I mean, you're starting, what is that, 75 outfielders starting in a league like that, plus everybody's got 1 or 2 on the bench. I mean, suddenly you're looking at 95 outfielders rostered, and it's rough out there.
Yeah, I had that same scenario 2 weeks ago in the Barf League, and I picked up Kai Tom and Jake Bowers. So that tells you where we're at. That tells you like where it's at.
If you're picking up Jake Bowers, you know that we're at the end of the rope for efficiency.
Yes, he got dropped this week for Darren Ruff, and that one's working out pretty well.
Nice.
So I got lucky there.
Speaking of which, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. You mentioned Darren Ruff. What the hell is up with your Giants, man? Every time I'm like, oh, here we go. It's finally time for them to tank. They score 19 runs, or Gossman throws another shutout. Discofani throws another shutout. Are you allowing yourself to get excited about the Giants yet?
Yes, I'm starting to throw my sarcastic Dodger tweets because I've been fully transparent. I have a bunch of Dodger fans here.
Don't poke that bear yet.
No, I flat out to all my friends here. I'm like, I'm enjoying this now because I fully expect you to win the West when this is all said and done. Like, I'm not clueless on this scenario. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I'm going to enjoy the heck out of it until then. Like they announced.
Yeah, but if I told you a month ago the shoe hadn't dropped yet, you would have been like, I'll sign up for that for sure.
Hey, I could see at least the All-Star break being somewhat interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So that part's new. They actually hit the baseball like regularly. This platoon team they built actually makes sense. I'm just concerned about the pitching. All it takes is a couple injuries. Like Logan Webb just got hurt. They don't even know who they're. They don't even know who they're bringing up yet. And it's just like Wood's going to be due for an IL stint at some point. Cueto probably another one. It's just that's going to be the navigating part. It's going to be very tricky because that bullpen's bad.
They certainly know what they're doing with starters, though. I mean, everybody they roll in there, and it's not just the park anymore because, I mean, the Giants hit in that park, but they clearly are, whether it be pitching coach or, development or spring training stuff. I mean, they're clearly really building guys well right now.
Yeah, well, they're taking the guys from Cincinnati, and then they're just throwing them in this ballpark. It's been pretty nice the last couple of years. So, Sonny Gray, if you're available, come on over. Yeah. But, we'll see what happens. Like, I was looking forward to just kind of waiting through this season. Over $100 million comes off the books next year, and then another like $40 million the next year. And I'm like, okay, then we'll have some fun. Yeah,
but too bad that suddenly Buster Posey and Brandon Crawford are worth their contracts. Like, it's nuts. It's crazy.
It's insane. Posey looks like he's an MVP again. Yeah, it's fun. I'm definitely enjoying it while I can.
Yeah,
but it's I'm waiting for that other shoe to drop in a big way.
Fair enough.
While we're on the Angels real quick, I didn't have it on the outline, but it kind of took place last night. Shohei Ohtani's velocity dropped tremendously in that start, and there's been no reports of anything wrong with him. He was hitting in Thursday's games like he's playing, but that was a massive drop. Like, what level of concern do you have? Because I'm sitting there going, oh, no.
It was weird because I saw it on Twitter. Someone was like, oh, he's throwing 89. I'm like, that can't be right. So I flipped on the game, and all of a sudden he's throwing a fastball. The first fastball of the inning I watched was 89. And I was like, oh, that's weird. But I guess the only good thing is, like, he started at 89, 90. It wasn't like he was throwing 96 and all of a sudden it dropped really quickly, which I guess is a good thing. And the announcers were like, oh, he's just pitching. And I was like, yeah, that's not how this works. No. But I don't know. They're talking about dead arm. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, but I'm worried just because he's so great for baseball. Yep. Like, I've always said that I would love to see him just hit just because I don't want – I love watching him pitch, but I just don't want him to get hurt more than anything. Yep. I just, he's such a good hitter. And in 2019, I mean, he was he had 285 with 18 home runs. And the year before he had 20. You could just tell that if he got just locked in hitting. I do like they're hitting him, day after he pitches, day before he pitches. That's been a lot of fun. Whereas my concern was like it was going to be 3-4 days a week hitting. But it has to be concerning, though. I mean, the guy's throwing all his pitches are like 6 mile an hour slower. So I guess the next start will tell us a lot probably.
Yeah, the one thing I've said forever that they need to do with him is play him in the field and then make him your closer. Bring him in the ninth.
It'd be nasty. How fun. I guess, is it hard? I guess warming up would be the issue, but.
Yeah, it'd be like the old Little League days. Hey, go over there and start throwing, get loose.
Like, but, I guess when they hit, he go warm up really quick, but then it's hard to do. But man, him coming out of the pen, throwing 99, after he hit a bomb that day would be so fun.
That's what I want to see. But let's go to the Mets, meet the Mets. Taijuan Walker goes to the IL. Carlos Carrasco has no idea when he's going to throw again. That was the exact words in the quote.
That was throw off a mound again, right?
Yes, off a mound again.
So he's throwing just off flat ground, which is not great.
Which is not great, yeah. Jacob deGrom had a rehab start on Thursday, throwing almost 102. Looked great against a single A team.
Did you see that line?
Yes, 3 innings, 8 Ks.
How awesome do you feel about that if you're the guy that made contact, though?
You feel like a superstar. Like, where's my promotion?
If you're single A and you're the one guy didn't K, like you're talking crap the rest of the season right there.
Someone made one of the best tweets. They said, Yeah, it's pretty cool seeing DeGrom throw 102 against single A pitchers, especially when they get paid so much for it.
Yeah, right.
But and then you have Syndergaard through a rehab start 4 innings, look decent, so he's back soon. What are you doing with the Mets, though? That's like, it's tough right now.
It is. I mean, it's funny. You look at like roster resource, and they have 2 guys in the rotation right now, and just three red spots of I don't know who's pitching. Essentially, I was kind of optimistic about Syndergaard. I did not think he was going to throw 4 innings in that rehab start. He was throwing 93, 95. People were worried about that, but he's ramping up. I think that's a pretty good sign. You know, you get into a regular game, you ramp that up a little bit more. I think that's pretty good. He struck out 6 guys in that start, so. If you're looking for a silver lining there, it's Syndergaard. I mean, the DeGrom thing's scary. Like, he's throwing so hard, but it seems like, getting through 5 or 6 might be a little tough right now. And then, they probably brought him back maybe a couple days too soon when he got hurt the first time. But the Carrasco thing's weird. Like, it was going to be 3 weeks, then it was going to be 5 weeks. Then people were drafting him like, as long as I get him, May 10th, I'm good with that. And we're at May 20th. He's not throwing off a mound yet. Like, it's really strange for what is it? It's a hamstring injury, right?
I think so. But with him, like, he had a dead arm for a while. There's the hamstring. You never know with Carrasco. That's the bad part.
It's too bad because he's just so good, and I really like the guy. But I don't know if I'm in a 12-team league right now, it's going to be hard to keep holding it if you've been hanging on. It's just not throwing off a mound means we're probably a couple weeks away of him kind of getting everything ramped up. Then a couple more rehab starts. You got to think
all-star break probably.
Yeah, best case we're looking at 4 or 5 weeks, and that's like absolute best case.
Yeah, it's not good. Speaking of Syndergaard, though, like a guy like Framber Valdez, he just threw a rehab start for 3 innings, so he's coming back pretty soon. Syndergaard's coming back soon. Obviously, you're going to start putting feelers out for them in leagues where you can add them potentially.
Yeah.
But with these injured guys that are coming back, like how sneaky do you try to get grabbing? Like, how far out in advance do you try grabbing these guys?
Like, it's a terrible answer, but usually not soon enough for me. Like, I literally crossed them off draft sheets. I wasn't going to wait until, because it's just like, if someone like Syndergaard looks great now, but if he had one setback in May, suddenly, that's a wasted pick. Yeah. The Valdez thing is weird. Like, Dusty Baker's quotes about him are weird. Like, he's like, oh, it's a miracle he's with us. And I'm like, he didn't almost die. Like, we're talking about a hand injury. Like,
finger.
Like, he talks about it like it's a modern miracle of the guy's like standing. It's so strange. Dusty's had some weird quotes this year.
Yes, he is.
I don't know. I mean, he's thrown 3 innings in AAA, you said. Yeah, I mean, it's too late for Framber if he's probably picked up in every league. But if you're a 12-teamer or a 10-teamer, I'd probably grab him right now just in case. I don't know what's going to look like. And if Syndergaard's available anywhere, I'd certainly pick him up now, but it's probably too late.
I guess the best question for this, because those 2 guys are probably, like you said, grabbed. What about a guy like Chris Sale?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask about Sale.
Because I'm not touching him. Because I'm still nervous, but
I don't think so. And I think, it's Sale. I think they got to be uber cautious about him when he comes back. My answer is probably not right now, which means that I'll probably not be soon enough when people do go for the rush to pick him up. He's been available. I go through my 12 teamers. I look at percentage owned, and he always comes up there. I think he's middle of the pack, 40 or 50% owned. So he always comes up as a guy that I see, and I'm never really in on the bidding. So there's probably gonna be someone that's going to spec a little sooner than I am.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Michael Pineda to the IL, and this is a weird one too. It's like, he's going to miss his day get pushed back a day because of a procedure, and now it's like he's on the IL because of a procedure. It's really, really bizarre. But it did open the door for Lewis Thorpe to get a start today on Thursday. Went 4 innings, 4 runs, but only 1 earned. No strikeouts. Is this a guy that's interested you? Because he's got kind of prospect pedigree, but not the best of starts.
Yeah, and I looked at like 2019 AAA. It's hard with prospects here because we don't have any 2020 stats to look at. And like guys could have had huge growth at the alternate side, or guys could have kind of looked flat. We just don't know. I looked at 2019 AAA, didn't really get excited. He had a 4.5 ERA. He did have a pretty good strikeout rate and a good walk rate. So maybe there's a little bit of flash there. But he's pitched 14 innings so far in the bigs. He has 5 strikeouts. He had 0 strikeouts today. I'm a little gun shy on rookie pitchers right now after the experiments we talked about earlier with Lynch and Gilbert. So probably someone I'll have in like a deeper league as a conditional. I'll have to look at who he faces next week, but it probably won't be a target for me.
I guess I should have asked you earlier. Lynch is obviously back in AAA. Gilbert, I think they're going to give a much longer leash than Lynch got in Kansas City just because they finally brought him up. But you never know. Like if you went and got Gilbert and hope maybe you didn't break the bank on Gilbert, is he potentially on the chopping block for you this week?
I'm probably going to give him another week. It's funny though. You watch him and I use the Shane McClanahan comp. Like you watch that start against the A's and you're like, oh my God, this guy looks awesome. And whether, there's some things here and there and he walks some guys, but you looked at the stuff, you're like, I can see this guy dominating or having really good starts. You watch Gilbert and it hasn't been there. Like it hasn't been like, you're like, it's not like he's struggling. You're like, but I see it where you see with a lot of guys. I'm probably going to hold for a week or two. The minor league numbers have been so good. So you got to figure there's something there, but he hasn't looked ready so far. But if I picked him up, I'm going to probably wait one more week, one more start. If he gets shelled again, I'm probably not starting him this week, but I'm probably going to move on if he gets hit hard once more.
Yeah, 100% with you. Very, very much hesitant to start him.
Yeah.
Let's and I won't even ask you, but there's I just totally blanked on his name, but in Atlanta, there's going to be an opening there. It's either going to be Wilson or I think it was Davidson or something that started a couple days ago. And he was actually pretty decent. So I'm curious to watch that one unfold. But let's go to Minnesota, where Alex Kirilloff is rehabbing, and he was awesome right before he got hurt, which really stunk. And apparently, I didn't realize it at first. He was a re-aggravation of a previous wrist injury, which is always concerning. But he's already hit 2 home runs now in rehab in about 3 games. Trevor Larnach went deep on Thursday night to make things a little more interesting because he was kind of scuffling to getting things going. I'd imagine Kirilloff comes back and it's his job. That's my thought. He's got to be out there every day. So No's hitting well, so that's not going to be a first base option right now.
Yep.
Do you see Larnach going back? Do you see Garlic maybe taking a break? Like, how would you approach this if you are setting your roster and whatnot?
I would certainly, if someone had dropped Kirilloff, I would certainly go after that. I mean, 63% hard hit rate is just bonkers. Like he was getting some bad luck at first, and finally stuff was starting to drop or just go over the fence. He had a couple of those opposite field home runs. I'm like, oh my God, this guy can hit. So I'd love to see Larnach stick with Kirilloff there, but I just don't see it happening. You've got Arias playing a bunch. You've got Kepler still there. I think if they're smart, they send Larnach back down and let him get every day at bats. I just don't think they want him to be a bench bat. But I actually liked what I saw from Larnach when I kind of looked at him in Fab a couple weeks ago. I think he's got a lot of I think the raw power is for sure there. But I think in terms of fantasy, I think he's probably going to go back down. I think it's probably a good call for them. So I'm probably once Kirilloff goes back, I think Larnach's probably a drop, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm thinking Larnach goes. You have Kirilloff. You keep the right hand and bat and Garlic up there and use the platoon situation. And you nailed what good teams do is you want the kid to get every day at bats. Sitting on the bench is no good at all. So
well, the Twins are far from good right now.
That's true. I don't know if everyone's heard it, and it's sometimes you don't want to listen to it, but CC Sabathia has one of the best 2.5-minute rants ever about La Russa. And
awesome.
At the very end, he throws the Twins under the bus.
Oh,
if you listen to the whole clip,
end of it.
He says, you guys don't deserve to throw behind someone because your team sucks. Become a better baseball team. Don't lose by 15 runs, and you want to throw behind someone.
Don't listen to the clip at work, or unless you have headphones on. But CC went fully all in and loose, and I have to say I agreed with almost all of it. It was just, and it was good to hear from a player that's not like a guy who's who's super young. Like you hear these guys talk about a guy that's a veteran, played forever, and you could think maybe he has some old school mentality, but he just has a correct mentality. The whole thing is just so stupid. So it was a really good rant. I laughed.
It was great. Yeah. Great to hear. I'm still waiting for the blow up in that clubhouse because
it has to come, right?
Because Giolito and Anderson, or not Giolito, it was Lynn and Anderson. They both spoke up in a very roundabout way of basically telling them to F off. So it's going to be.
Do you think Lourdes has any idea how to check Instagram though?
True. That's very true. He probably doesn't have he probably still has a flip phone.
Yeah.
So
if you hit him up on MySpace, you probably get right at him though.
His best friend's Tom. All right. If you older people will understand that.
Yeah, sorry. That was a bad joke for anybody under 20. Sorry.
Yes. Let's go to the Dodgers here. Cody Bellinger, he is set to rehab, which is good because it looked like he had a setback there for a little while, but things are back on track. The Dodgers could use him because everyone's getting hurt. So obviously you're playing Cody Bellinger when he's back. But the reason I bring this up is Matt Beatty was a popular ad this last week. You have McKinstry, and there's even though Beatty looked like he was playing, he hasn't played half the games this week. Maybe it's still such a mess there. How do you? I stay away from the Dodgers pretty much unless it's the locked in players. How are you approaching them in these 15-team leagues where you might need a Beatty or something?
You kind of took my answer for me. I want Betts, Lux, Muncy, Turner, Belly. Tell you what, Chris Taylor, 35 runs scored, 5 home runs, 5 stolen bases, hard hit rate over 40%. OBP is 426, 16% walk rate right now. It's crazy what Chris Taylor's doing. But, with the fact they added Pujols and Satsugo made it even harder. I think I would have liked Beatty because Beatty's a batting average guy that actually hit the majors. And I wish with those spots, I wish they just kind of give him a run of at bats because I think, he hit 265 in 2019 and a big chunk of at bats, almost 300 plate appearances, 270, something like that. He's at 283 so far this year. I wish they just would have given him a chance. I'd like to see him just hit every day, but it's pretty clear that aside those 6 guys, they're going to platoon the heck out of the other 3 spots. And I think I'm probably just kind of staying away and looking at other teams where I get full-time at bats. Just there's some talented guys here. And even Will Smith's frustrating because Austin Barnes plays a bunch and Smith's not hitting. So if you're going to play half the time, you better hit when you do. But I think I think it's hard to hit when you sit 2-3 times a week too. I think it's hard to really get in a flow. And I think I wonder if they're hurting Smith's development as a hitter just a little bit. I mean, the Dodgers are super smart, so who am I to second guess them? But it seems like they've really had something to Will Smith there, and it hasn't been there the first 8 weeks.
I think you're onto something there for sure, though. It makes sense. You said it with Larnach earlier. They need to get everyday at bats. Smith, he needs those everyday at bats. So it makes a lot of sense. The kid can hit. It's hard to hit when you're on the bench. So 100% with you there. Let's go to Kansas City now. Danny Duffy has a flexor strain, which usually signals bad things. The reports came out a couple days afterwards. They said it wasn't that bad. He's actually doing good. He should start throwing here in a couple days. Hopefully, we'll see. The velocity was up, so that usually ticks the box of, here we go.
Yep.
But Chris Bubic is an interesting thing, at least for 15-team leagues. He pitched off and on last year, had good days, had bad days. Made his first start this year, looked good. He was decent out of the pen and long relief. I'd say in 15-teamers, he's probably worth something of a bid. But like, how interested are you guys on Chris Bubic, who we know can be both ends of the spectrum?
Yeah, the disappointing thing is he pitches Sunday, I think, this week against Detroit. So if you're picking him up, you're picking him for next week, and he's at Minnesota, which maybe he looks great right now, but like a lefty going into target field, I don't really think I want that. I'll admit he just, the ERA is obviously sparkling right now, and he's been pitching really well. But I don't know. I look at a 13% walk rate. I look at a 20% K rate. It was hard for me to get really excited about him. I mean, last year he was decent. He had a 4.3 ERA in 50 innings. I don't know. He feels like a guy to me that if you're going to use him, it better be in a damn good matchup. And I don't think I want to do it at Minnesota, even though they've been scuffling. I don't think I want to throw a lefty in target field and have to, kind of a fringy lefty, I should say, in target field, just because if I could pick him up in a daily league, I'll pick him up for that start against Detroit. Sure. I'll stream that on Sunday. But I'm not picking him up for one at Minnesota.
Yeah, that Detroit team strikes out like 33% of the time versus lefties. Yeah, sign me up on that one. But
I'm surprised they're not one of the no-hit teams in Cleveland and Seattle and Texas. It's crazy.
It's only May 20th. We've got time. But it's interesting. Like, the thing with Bubic is, I don't want him against Minnesota, but in some of these leagues, it's been so hard to kind of decide who I want to add. It's almost like if I have no one else, I'll throw him for like $1 and just stash him for like maybe the following week or something. If I have to drop him, I drop him. He's just interesting to me because last year it was either all or nothing in starts, so it could be tilting, but he's got some upside, which is quite interesting, at least for Kansas City.
And that's a good point. Like, when I was looking at starters last week, usually I kind of keep a list and I'm writing down, 10, 12 names I want to look at. I think I wrote down like 4 guys last week that I was like,
it's getting harder and harder.
Remotely considering. There's a lot. Pitching is really good right now, but it's all the good guys that have been picked up. Like, it was the first week all year where I had trouble even like finding guys to like look deeper at, which is never a good sign.
Yeah, the last couple of weeks have been like that. And Vlad even said, sometimes that's a good thing. I was like, yeah, but it never makes me feel good. Like, when I leave my computer going, there's got to be something I missed.
Vlad usually has 13 healthy starters and never has any bad luck. So that helps too. Yeah,
Vlad posted a picture of his main event team that had the last 2 no-hitters on back-to-back nights on the roster. So, life is tough for Vlad.
I saw that. It got texted to me. It got tweeted. I couldn't have missed it if I wanted to.
That's what friends are for, though.
I love him. Love him to death.
Yes. He's the best. He is the best. But let's talk about some keeper cut questions. And it's for 12 and 15-team leagues. I think it's going to be more for 12-team leagues because you guys will see pretty quickly. You're pretty much keeping all of them in 15 because they have pulse and some decent upside. But they're interesting players to discuss here. So let's kick it off. We kind of mentioned him earlier. Luis Castillo, one of those popular names all over fantasy Twitter. It's been ugly. You couldn't have missed the production so far. But he did strike out 11 this last time, gave up 3 runs, even a home run, 5 innings. There's lots of improvement still to be made, but the fact he was getting those swings and misses, and he looked pretty filthy when he was doing so, is a bright spot. You're keeping him in 15s for sure. 12-team leagues, I'm assuming you're still keeping him, Scott, but what's your level of concern to maybe potentially drop him?
Yeah, and some of these guys I might say, like if you're in a trade league, like whether I want to, buy high or sell low. Point. So I think that matters too, because I don't think anyone's dropping Castillo. Castillo actually got dropped in one of the main event leagues of 15-teamers. Someone probably just had enough and wasn't going to use him for 2, but I think that's a mistake. I mean,
big time.
The toughest part about Castillo, I think, has been the fact that he was a second rounder. You're like, well, what else could I have gotten there? Would it all have worked out? And like every single pitcher in that range has been dealing. Like Buehler, Burns, Woodruff, Flaherty, like Scherzer, everybody else you could have taken instead is absolutely just dominating. So that's what makes it even tougher. But I took a lot of good out of that start. I mentioned the base runners are concerning, but it's just a matter of he's got to figure out the strikeout stuff. I mean, the changeup, the whiff rates from 40% down to 29%. But like you said, he was getting them last week. The 4-seam whiff rates down a bunch to a big chunk, like 10% also. I guess I got to see it again this week. I'm hoping to get built. The key thing is to me is the velocity still there. So I don't think he's like hiding an injury or something like that. It was down a little bit the first couple of starts, but he's very clear that guy that it's been talked about a bunch. He doesn't like the cold weather. Since it's warmed up a little bit. I mean, the guy's BABIP is 391. Like he's gotten some bad luck there, but like we mentioned, some hard hit balls. I don't think you could do anything. I think you have to hold him. I think you can't sell him low. I think you have to keep pitching him. And it comes to the point where you took him the second round. If he's going to suck all year, like you're probably not going to win your league. It's kind of one of those things. Like I think you're pot committed now. Some people disagree with that. Some people are like, well, I don't want to keep getting bitten by him. I'm one that at this point it's May. I couldn't stomach him throwing a really good outing on my bench yet. So if we get to say, let's go July 1st. If he's still bad July 1st, I might think about benching him. But I'm gonna throw him these next 6 weeks and kind of see where we're sitting in a while.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. He's got the Cubs coming up. He's got the Cardinals coming up, both on the road. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Those don't fire me up too much, but
no. But you mentioned something there, and it's kind of my mantra. Someone I did the tweet just to have fun with it. Like, yes, I'm using Castillo this week, and someone's like, "You're crazy." I said, "You know what? What could we do worse to my ratios? At least I might be able to get strikeouts and a win out of this. Like I need to get something out of it, and knock on wood, it worked this time. It's probably not going to work every time.
He got a chance at 20 strikeouts this week too. I mean, he's got another start on Sunday. He's facing the Brewers. If you get 20 strikeouts, I think you can deal with some issue. You don't want to sit that.
Yeah, that's where the philosophy was at. So we'll see how it continues on. But let's go to the guy that I was banging the drum for going into the season. He's the next guy to join the big three. Might need to slow down on that mantra. But Lucas Giolito, he's been an interesting case this year. It started out okay, then he got blown up, and it's been a helicopter ride since then. Looked phenomenal against Minnesota. Looked like the Giolito of old, pretty much. I think we're finding good steps. One thing as I tell people is I listen to podcasts all day because I'm in my truck. And Chris Rose has a new podcast on John Boy, and he's got a rotation, and Giolito's one of them. And he talks about how he thought he was tipping his pitches and how he's working on things to fix it. He kind of could see some developments here and there since that Boston start. But the thing he was on today's episode is he uses a mental vision testing thing to help him stay focused. It was really weird. And he said he did that 2 days before this last start. And I'm not saying that's the reason, but I'm like, maybe. I don't know. So back to Giolito. What are you doing with him?
I think he's totally fine. If I could buy him low in a league right now, I would. You probably can't do it after he strikes out 11 guys, but I don't know. I mean, you look at pitchers, and I think we want such instant gratification. But if he gets really hot, all of a sudden he'll have an ERA what was the ERA last year? 3.48, something like that. Yeah. I mean, he's 4.3 right now. That's a good month of pitching. He's back to kind of where we're at. So I don't. The fourth overall, I know you're banging that drum. Yeah. We may not get there. With 8 weeks of 4.5 ERA, you're probably not going to get there. There's going to be so many pitchers are going to be way lower than that, especially in this season where everybody can apparently pitch well. But I think that he's going to be solid from here on out. It'll be really good. I think he'll be great. I think he'll be a top 20 guy from here on out. We're not going to get to top 4, but you're not benching him. You're not dropping him. I'm not trading him. If anything, I'd be buying him right now. The K rate's down a little bit, but it's still 29%. It's not like he's struggling. Castillo's is down to 20%. That's a concerning number. Whereas, Giolito, I think will be fine. 4.35 ERA. That's not killing you right now. As long as you get some good starts coming up, I'm totally fine with Giolito right now.
Yeah, about 3.5 to 4 more months of baseball.
Yeah,
he probably has 20 to 25 more starts. There's a lot of goodness to come out of that. So I'm with you there. I still have faith in him. And on the bright side, what it's going to do is he'll finish as an SP 10 or 12, which means I'll just buy back in next year for my SP. It's just I get a discount again next year. Sweet. But
if you want a real positive, you look at someone like Jack Flaherty in 2019. I think his ERA was 4.8 in July.
Yep.
Now, granted, nobody's going to have quite the run that he had, but you can fix stuff. It just if he's really good for 4 months, his ERA will end up fine. So I think he's someone that's on this list I'm probably the least worried about of anybody you have on this list.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Let's go to Washington. Josh Bell. This is the tough one because everyone saw the spring. They're all excited about him, all this good stuff. He hit his 5th home run today, but it's been very, very up and down. Still hitting below 200. Strikeout rate's up. It's very tilty. And he's kind of platooning with Ryan Zimmerman. That comment alone should concern you.
Yeah.
So what are you doing with Josh Bell? Because in 15s, I think you're still holding him, but 12s, I think it's at least a conversation.
He'd actually be a trade target for me right now. I think I'd love to try and trade for him. You look at the BABIP is 200, but he's at 54% hard hit rate. Like he's smoking the ball. It's going to have to turn around a little bit. He's not going to hit the ball that hard. I think it's pretty clear that he's a little bit of a different guy. The K rates the last couple of years are way different than his first 4 years. He was an under 20% strikeout guy in 2016 through 2019. Now he's 26% last year, 27% this year. So, maybe maybe the batting average floor is a little lower than maybe we hoped for, but I think the power will be there. The problem is the fly ball rate. I mean, if he's got to get that back. He was kind of a fly ball issue guy at the beginning, and we're like, can he hit the home runs? Then he jumped over. He's been under 30% the last 2 years, so it's kind of putting a cap on his home runs. But with someone that's hitting the ball that hard, that we've seen it from before, like that's a guy that has been a big trade target for me. Clearly not a drop. I'd love to grab him in a trade league if I could right now.
And you mentioned a good thing. Looking at the BABIP, it kind of will make you feel a little better. It's not the end-all be-all stat, but a guy that hits the ball as hard as he does, there's got to be some positive regression coming that way. And that's kind of like when you mentioned Kirilloff earlier was doing that. I've talked about Vaughn a lot. He was just like that. It's just a matter of time. Your
boy Bobby Dalbec kind of fits in that too. He's starting
three-run homer tonight. He's hitting over 300 the last 10 games. Like the dude they're young kids. They're going to figure this stuff out eventually.
Like you said, BABIP is not the be-all end-all. If you see a guy with a low BABIP who's smoking the ball, like that's going to come around a little bit. I mean, it's a long season. I think people are still stuck in the 60-game sprint mindset.
100%.
It's going to come around for someone like Josh Bell. As long as he keeps hitting the ball hard, it's just he's not going to hit $173. And I think you're going to look at it in 2 months. He's going to have a nice run here. And like in middle of July, the All-Star break, I think his stats will look pretty good.
Plus, it's going to start warming up, especially in Washington, where the ball flies out in the summertime. So
there's a lot of guys that don't like hitting in April, and you can't blame them.
Don't blame them one bit.
Hitting 96 when it's 38 degrees out is not a good time.
I don't remember how many rain out snowstorms we've had this late in the year still. It's crazy.
It is.
So we'll see. Let's go back to Minnesota talking about rain out snowstorms. Kenta Maeda, this is a tough one. Like I avoided him this year because I thought the price was too high. It wasn't against him per se, but just like last year the price was great. This year to me it was too high. But he's looked lost most starts this year, pretty much all of them. What are you doing with a guy like Maeda? Because I am terrified of what I've seen out there.
Yeah, this is probably the first one on the list where like I genuinely have some concern about the guy. I mean, as we get more into the season, everything from 2020 kind of sticks out like a huge outlier, right? Like you had that 32% strikeout rate, and now he's down to 19%. Everything just kind of, the walks were way down last year. Now they're back up a little bit. They're kind of not quite where they were in 2018, 2019, but he's a guy that I've always liked too, which is tough. I mean, he went up to move to the third round this year. I'm like, dude, we're looking at 66 innings last year. He was really, really good. But as we've seen a lot of guys right now, have a lot of innings that are really good that we know are going to, have some regression the other way. So you can't drop him. I mean, you draft him in the third round, but he's not someone that I'd target. I mean, his barrel rate's up. His hard hit rate is jarring right now. It was 24% last year. It's 45% right now. Like he's giving up a lot of hard contact. He's getting a lot less strikeouts. That's a really bad formula right now.
Strikeouts are down, walks are up, home runs are up. It's just across the board. It's quite terrifying with what's taking place there, especially in the world where we have so much less offense.
Yeah, the whiff rate on a splitter, which was unreal last year, is down 20%. It's 45% last year. It's 25% right now. It's clearly either guys are figuring him out, that he's getting a scouting report and adjusting, or that his pitches are not moving the same as they were last year.
Yeah, that was my biggest concern with him coming into the year. If you looked at you said 66 inning sample, like that's already small enough, but he was so efficient, like ridiculously efficient. You just can't, to duplicate that would have been asking a lot. So.
The .75 whip, every time I looked at him, I'm like, oh my God, that's insane. He was awesome last year.
You want to compare a 200 BABIP to a .75 whip, we can talk about stuff because it's going to go the other way eventually.
For sure. I mean, you look at BABIP last year was 208. It's 350 right now. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's a 5.2, 5.3 ERA guy, but I don't think he ends the year under 4. I don't think he does enough. Yeah.
I was about to say 4 or 5, like a quality start guy, maybe like a 6 innings, 3 to 4 run start guy. But
that's one of those picks. You took him in the third round. Like if he ends up at 4.5, that is one that does kill you.
Yep, that hurts big time. Let's go to another guy that was gaining steam towards the end of draft season. It was very tough for me to stomach. Like I saw part of the argument of former ace going basically free at the same time as former ace just doesn't seem to have it anymore. But Patrick Corbin, we've seen both the good and the bad of late. We've seen the velocity up at times, the slider snapping off beautifully. Seen the other starts where he looks like this guy's just giving up home run derby out there. It's been very, very tricky with him. I stayed away from him, but there's like people that I respect a lot that are smart with pitchers that think he's going to figure it out. So where do you sit on Patrick Corbin?
It's funny because usually I love guys like this in draft. Usually I love someone that like he was really good, whatever that was, that 3-year run. Then he had a blip in 65 innings. I'm like, usually I'm back in on this, but then I look deeper and I was concerned. I mean, you look at his ex-WOBA, ex-slug, ex-batting average, ex-ERA are all bottom 10 percentile right now. Like, his StatCast page is so freaking blue. It's crazy.
Not good.
Hey, granted, that's not everything, and we're, 41 innings in, but, the sinker's getting killed right now. He throws that 28% of the time. He's at 883 slugging against that pitch right now, which is just horrendous. That's like turning everybody into a freaking video game all-star. It's crazy. The whiff rate and the slider is still good. It's 36%, but then you look at 2019, it was 51%. The thing that's weird to me is that his velocity is actually up a little bit from last year, and he's in line with 2018, 2019 on the fastball, but his slider is 2.5 miles an hour slower right now than it was in 2018, 2019. So he's throwing the fastball the same. I know if the slider's a little bit different pitch, he's not getting the same snap on it, but the fact that he's not throwing that as hard really concerns me. I'm out on Corbin right now. I don't think you can't drop him to 15. I'd probably give him another month at a 12, but not someone I'd try to get in a trade right now. I'm a little concerned, especially with the fact that slider velocity is not picked back up.
He's definitely a pick and choose your battle guy. Like, I'm not throwing him out there every week.
Matchups are big with him. You gotta find the right spots to use him and hope it's a day where the slider's working.
Yeah, it's very, very tilting for sure. Let's go to the Toronto Blue Jays, Lourdes Gurriel, who actually isn't playing on Thursday because he tweaked his ankle on Wednesday night, but he was starting to actually finally hit the ball. It was a really slow start to the year, but he's coming off of before last night, had a 5-game hitting streak, multiple hit games in 4 straight games. Looked like he was slowly figuring out, and he's been a slow starter in the past, so kind of grain of salt situation. But there's so many options, and Springer's going to come back eventually. Maybe he becomes the odd man out. I don't know. Gurriel seems like one of those guys on the brink of a drop possibly in leagues. How do you approach him?
Yeah, it's tough because I really liked him coming into this year. I mean, he had 31 home runs in 143 games between 2019 2020, and all the hard contact stuff looked great. He was over, it was like 49% last year. I'm still a hold on him just because I can't jump off yet. My concern with him is what you mentioned. I think when Springer comes back, Granil Grichuk's been so good that Gurriel's gotta sit some games. Like, there's just no way they can not have Grichuk in the lineup at least a little bit. I think that the concern for me is playing time. The other concern with me is he's just not hitting the ball hard. Like, he was over 45% hard hit the last 3 years. He's 35% right now. And I think we saw it coming a little bit. You mentioned he was on the 5-game hitting streak, but yeah, he's getting killed by breaking balls too. He hit 347 against breaking balls last year. He's at 182 right now. So I just don't know if we're looking at a small sample, but I don't like what I see. And I kind of figure as I look deeper into him, I'd be like, I think he's all right, but I didn't quite get there with him. So I'm not dropping him yet in a 15 or a 12, but if he starts to lose playing time at a 12, I think he kind of becomes a fringy guy really fast.
Yeah, it's getting close, and I'm with you. I was really excited about him this year. I was even saying he'd be better than Teoscar Hernandez, so pretty much ready to take the L on that one already. But, yeah, let's go to Cleveland. Eddie Rosario, he signed with the Indians this year, and, from a ballpark standpoint, it should have benefited him even more being in Cleveland. But he has struggled tremendously. Like this, he started out the season pretty good, but it's been a cold spell for quite some time. He has thrown in 5 stolen bases, which is nice.
Saved it.
But, it's getting towards the point where I literally have debated dropping him in 12-team leagues.
Yeah, he's become kind of a platoon guy for me in 12ers. If he's got like a good matchup for the half week or for the week, I'm throwing him in there. But it's weird. You look at him and the home runs are there, but he's never been a guy who hits the ball really hard. Like, he's never been above 36% as a hard hit rate guy, which kind of surprised me. In the offseason when I was looking at him, fly ball rate's under 40% right now, which is really hurting him. And home run to fly ball, he's had some bad luck there. He's 6.7%, but you're hitting less fly balls and you're hitting them less hard. Like, that's not really a great formula that we're looking for home runs. And I don't think you can count on those 5 stolen bases. I don't think you can extrapolate that to 20 on the year if we, look at 25%. But yeah, I think he's still a hold in a 15 to 12, but he's a guy that in a 12, I'm looking to pick up someone to maybe platoon with him, maybe figure out weeks where I don't want to use him. But I think he's another guy that probably another 2 or 3 weeks, I'm starting to figure if he doesn't pick it up, he might be a drop in 12.
Yeah, it's like when they're starting to hit Jake Bauers over him in the order, it's kind of concerning to me.
Two Jake Bauers mentioned in one podcast is never a good thing. No,
we should probably call it a day at that, but we'll continue on. Manny Margot had the monster postseason last year, and it really kind of got other people, deep league players, onto the radar of Manny Margot, who they probably hadn't thought about since he was a Padres prospect at one point in time. But he was drafted pretty aggressively by certain people in the industry that I know, and I got him in a lot of leagues. But he's got 4 homers and 4 stolen bases on the year, hitting 236, starting to, 5-game hitting streak coming into today's action. The bright side is even when he's not hitting well, they still hit him like second or third almost every time. So he's in a good part in the lineup. For me, I'm still holding on to him, but it's like certain weeks I don't want to play him, which really, it's tough when you have all the injuries to keep holding that.
Yeah, and especially the problem is you get the Rays, and it's a Monday, and you're like, who do I start this week? And he's out of the lineup. You're like, all right, what do I do now? I think the only thing answer here is you got to hold him because of the stolen bases. Like he already has 4 steals. He had 12 last year in 47 games. He had 20 the year before. I think steals are so hard to find on the waiver wire. I think you have to hold him and just kind of, you're probably going to have some days where he doesn't play, but I think you got to hold him just because of the stolen bases. Solid K rate guy. I like that. He's not striking out a lot, so he's finding a way to hopefully get on base. He's got a 270 OBP, and we talk about stolen bases. It's hard to steal bases if you can't get there.
Yeah, very, very tricky. And he's been thrown out 3 times. He's converted 4 steals, so at least he's running, which is good. And you mentioned still on bases are tough. Yeah, I'm rostering Johnny VR all of a sudden in multiple leagues. So
he's balling right now. Is it
yes.
2 home runs this week? If he's playing every day in fantasy, I mean, the key to him, I didn't like him in drafts was he wasn't going to play very much. But if he's playing every day, may not be great for real baseball, but for fantasy, I mean, that's a must.
100% with you on that one. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, steals very, very tricky. Drew Smiley. This is a guy I avoided like the plague, and to start out the year looked great. Really disastrous starts. But now he's had, including Thursday night, 3 straight starts of 6 innings pitched, all quality starts, even 7 Ks on Thursday. The velocity looks better, but I just can't get behind Drew Smiley. I know other people love him. Are you a Drew Smiley guy, or are you still just kind of like, I don't want anything to do with it?
Yeah, I'm really not. I know he pitched pretty well today, but it was against Pittsburgh. Still gave up 3 runs, but one walk and 7 strikeouts is a good sign for Smiley, because you always worry a little bit about the walks. But I mean, he's ERA is at 5.11 now after tonight's start. I mean, that's not helping you. The K rate in 2020 was 26 innings, just sticks out like a sore thumb. That was like 38%. He's down to 19%, probably be a little bit higher now after facing Pittsburgh, but low 20% strikeout rate guy, 9% walk guy. I think he's a streamer for me right now. If I dropped him, I picked him up in a 12 2 weeks ago, used him once and then dropped him back. He wasn't supposed to face Pittsburgh. I think he was supposed to face someone else, and it kind of, I don't know, it was the Mets or someone, but I forget how it worked out. But I think he's a 15 team hold just because pitching's so bad. But I think a 12 team, he's a streamer and a guy that you got to play matchups with.
Yep, 100%. A couple more here. Charlie Blackman of the Colorado Rockies. I feel like Father Time has finally caught up with Charlie Blackman. The average is down. There's no power. He's not stealing bases. The only reason why I keep saying to hold him is because of Coors Field. But now you have Jonathan Daza and company playing regularly and playing well. Is Blackman on the chopping block for you?
He's not for me, just because I know that Coors warms up. In 2019, I think he had 1 home run the first 6 weeks of the season. I had him that year in the main event, and I was like, what am I doing here? It was I think he was a 3rd round pick. I was like, what's going on? He ended up with 32 home runs. I guess the thing I like about him is he's hitting the ball harder than he did last year. Last year was a concern. He did not hit the ball hard very, very much last year, but 46% hard hit right now, 6.3% barrel's not huge, but the hard hit rate's pretty good. I just think in Coors, the average is going to have to come up. I mean, he's got a 260 BABIP right now, so he's not getting super unlucky, but career he's 335, obviously playing in Coors. But Coors hasn't warmed up. Fly ball rate's low, so I think maybe the home runs are going to be capped a little bit, but I just think batting average is going to have to come in Coors Field. I think that, hitting in the first 6 weeks of Coors Field is just not Coors Field. We're going to get June, July, August coming up, and even September will be warm. I think Blackman's probably someone that definitely I hold. And if I'm in a league where someone's kind of sick of him, I think I might try and get a discount on him.
No, that's fair. I'm the same guy that says I'm probably done with Blackman, but I've added Fuentes and Daza and stuff in other leagues. So, it's just, that's where we're at in 2021.
And he's 34. It feels like he's 38, but he's only 34. It feels like he's been around forever. I don't know. He's one of those guys that, he's hit over 290 for 5 years in a row. I think a batting average is going to have to come. I think he's a good guy to be patient on and a good guy to try and grab if someone is kind of tired of him.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are tired of him, so go try to trade for him. That's very, very true.
And we always talk about buy lows, and usually it's on guys you're never going to buy low on. Nobody's going to give him up. But I think Blackman's a guy that, is 34, veteran, people not that exciting anymore. That I think you might be able to snag for 60% of his draft price or something like that.
Yeah, I think most of these guys we talked about, you could get at a nice discount, even like Luis Castillo and stuff. So yeah, would be quite interesting. Lorenzo Cain, the Milwaukee Brewers offense is dreadful, but they keep
again.
It's so bad. And they actually have guys if you look at the lineup card, like, okay, this isn't horrible. Like, they should be good a little bit. They're not. Locaine keeps playing every day, but he's just not producing. 208 average, a little bit of power. I guess 3 steals isn't bad for Locaine, but Avisel Garcia is still a better outfielder. Yelich is back. Yep. They have Tyron Taylor, who I'd just let him go right about now and see what he's got. What do you do with a guy like Locaine?
Yeah, he's one of these guys listed. I'm in a 12-teamer. If you can find a better outfielder, I'm okay getting him. The only good sign is the 3 stolen bases. Like, if he is gonna run, and maybe he didn't play last year. He played 5 games, then he opted out. So maybe a little rust here. But the K rate's up. Like, he's a guy that it's back up. He was like 70% in 2019 when he was still pretty good. He hit 260 with 18 steals. It's up to 19%. He is walking, but if you're going to get it like this, that's not going to hit a ton of pop. You don't want that many strikeouts. It's tough. He's one of those guys that's really on the edge for me. Hard hit rate's okay at 39%, but everybody has a hard hit rate, even though the ball's not traveling. The exit velocity is pretty good. I don't know. I guess if he's going to steal 15 to 20, he works, but he better darn do that because the home runs aren't coming. I think that, fly ball rate's really low. I'm not excited about Kane right now. I wouldn't try and get him. And if you're in a 12 team or someone good gets dropped, I think I'm fine making that swap.
All right. This is probably a buy low guy. Dom Smith started out really slow. He was hurt a little bit, platooning a little bit. It appears he's picking things back up again. We saw what he did last year in the shortened season. Is he a guy that you'd be trying to acquire, or are you thinking not this season?
And it's weird because we talked about Maeda, like how much that 2020 sticks out. Dom Smith's kind of that guy too when you look at his contact numbers. I mean, 13% barrel guy last year, had never been above 8%. He's back to 7.5%. He was a 47% hard hit rate guy, never been above 42%. Now he's down to 34%. But, he's kind of been in and out of the lineup. The Mets kind of been jerking around a little bit because he, at the beginning of the year, he's sitting against lefties. They're so injured right now that they have to play him every day. I mean, everybody they throw out there gets hurt. It's crazy. McNeil, Conforto, and Kevin Pillar just this week. Like since Monday, they've got 3 outfielders that got hurt. So he's playing every day. I don't know. The K rate's up. He's not what I'm really going out to be excited about. I'm going to hold him if I have him because I think there's enough in 2020 that makes me excited enough that I want to hold him, but not someone I'm looking to aggressively target and trade right now. I don't know if that 2020 was real or just kind of sticks out as a 50 game really hot streak.
Yeah, no, he's a tough one. I wasn't drafting him this year because I was kind of wondering. It was more like prove it to me on a full season type thing. Yeah. But, and the playing time was a major concern as well. And, heck, Pete Alonso's battling an injury now, too. So,
we talked about their pitchers earlier. Like, their hitters are just as bad.
Yeah.
Crazy McNeil and Conforto the same day. It's just, it's I don't know. The Mets, they're under some curse, and I don't know. Maybe they'll get lifted someday. I don't know.
Mets going to Mets. Two more here. Alec Baum started out the year very strong. Been ugly since then. He's even been in a platoon with Brad Miller. That should tell you a lot of what you need to know. He was 0 for 4 on Thursday night with 3 more strikeouts. I've been benching him places and really close to cutting him in places, but I know the potential's there, but it's really getting close to cut time. So what's your thoughts on Alec Baum?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough with, a second-year guy. There was no book on him last year, and he came up and raked to get, 340. Granted, the BABIP was insane, but I think we saw a lot of good stuff from him last year. He hit the ball really hard. I just wonder if guys have a book on him and he needs to adjust back. Like he was a guy in the minors that struck out 15% of the time, like a really good strikeout guy. Last year was 20. You kind of expect that bump up his first time around the majors, but you mentioned tonight he struck out 3 times. He's at 28% right now. Like that's a big number for a guy that, I don't think we're looking at, 35 home run power, but a guy that you want line drives to all fields, going to hit some home runs, going to hit for some batting average. And it's tough right now. I think he's at the point of his career right now where he needs to adjust back. I think teams have adjusted to him. He's hitting the ball hard when he hits it. He's got a 50% hard hit rate. So that's probably enough for me to hold on to him right there. I think the draft capital, I know that doesn't really matter, but it's still in May. I think that if I liked him enough to draft him at the price, I think I'm holding on for now, but he's a guy that is way more fringy than I thought he'd be at this point of the year. Yeah,
it's a weird one with Alec Baum. So yeah, I think he's going to be getting dropped in one of my leagues pretty soon, and I'm regretting it. It has the feels of a few years back when I dropped Matt Carpenter, and then he figured it out.
I remember it was funny that year. Carpenter couldn't do anything, but it was hitting the ball hard. And I remember that year he got dropped in the last spots and didn't make it out for 3 months.
Yeah, that was it haunts me to this day.
I'd hold Baum 2 more weeks.
Yeah, it's getting real close though. The last one here, I am very anti Chris Paddock. I've voiced that opinion very much so, but he's had back-to-back pretty decent starts, but only 4 innings and 3 innings in those. He hasn't gone over 5 1/3 in any start this year. Are you in, out, drop, hold Chris Paddock?
I'm out, but if I have him, I've got to hold him. I don't think you do it quite yet. But I mean, look at the K rate. It's 26.9% in 2019, 23.7% last year, and 21.1% this year. I think that we talk about adjusting and kind of getting a book on a guy. I mean, he's a guy that has 2 pitches. Like he throws the curveball a little bit, and it's good when he throws it, but it's just he throws it so rarely that you can kind of just throw it out. He's a fastball changeup guy as a starter. I think it's hard to go deep. I think third time the lineup's an issue there, and that's probably why the Padres have not extended him too far. He solved some of the hard contact stuff last year. He just got smoked. I mean, his hard hit rate was insane last year. He's down to 36%, but still a 9.5% barrel. So he's still getting up a lot of loud contact. The velo's up. The strand rates hurt him a little bit. So I'm still a hold, but he was someone that I thought I'd be in on this year big time. I thought that the blip last year, I'd be like, I'm going to buy in on that. Another guy, kind of like Patrick Corbin, I looked deeper and I'm like, I just don't want to draft this guy where he's getting in. He still had a lot of hype to him. He still was getting drafted pretty high. I think it was like a 8th, 9th, 10th rounder and a 15 teamer. Swinging strike rate's down a little bit too, so that concerns me. It's down to 10.9%. I just feel like he's a guy right now that's like kind of okay and can be good some days, but not someone that I'd aggressively try and get. I wouldn't drop him yet, but I'm not super fired up if I have him either.
Yeah, it's really tough because you got Coors Field on the schedule. You got the Dodgers. Heck, you got the Giants offense now.
Yeah.
So it's not looking easy.
You joke, but I mean, tell you what, it's hard. I remember. I think it was. I don't remember who it was. It was someone. I was Gomber. I got picked up Gomber. I'm like,
I was with you.
Giants in Arizona road starts. I'm like, absolutely. Until I realized that you gotta change that mindset. The Giants right now are not the Giants that we've had the last couple of years. I mean, especially against lefties. I mean, Gomber had nothing that night anyway. We could talk an hour about that start. Like I went back and watched to try to figure out exactly what happened. He's had nothing. Like he left more curveballs up in the zone than any pitcher I've seen ever in the majors. Like he just had no stuff that night, and he was going to get pounded by anybody. But you gotta. It's really important. It's May 20th. You have to adjust to different lineups. I mean, and you look at there's just teams that are different than we thought they were 8 weeks ago, and the Giants are one of them right now.
Yeah, now you look at Gomber's last 2 starts against the Padres, and you just want to yell at the sky. But yeah,
no doubt. I'm not. Are you going back in this week?
I don't know yet. I dropped him most places, but I have him on some still. I have him on some still just because it's been weird, and there's a chance. I'll get suckered in.
At Mets, at Pittsburgh.
A beat-up Mets team in the pot. Yeah, I'll get suckered in. So which team blows up on him? That's the question.
Probably Pittsburgh.
Yeah, probably. No, probably the Mets, the depleted Mets with Khalil Lee and all these other guys that it felt like the movie Major League, like who the F are these guys when the lineup came out? That'll be who it is. Couple listener questions here, and then we'll head on out. Our buddy David Mendelson, you were on the Triple Play Fantasy podcast recently. Good group of guys over there.
It was a very fun show. They do a great job. I love those guys.
Yeah, they're getting better and better every time out there. As the man who stumped the Schwab, I'll respect whichever way you answer this question. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Not a chance.
I'm with you there. I've never.
You say no also?
It's not a sandwich. I've never understood it. It's like, are you calling a taco a sandwich then?
Yeah. Since you mentioned Khalil Lee, he still has a 100% K rate.
Oh man. But hey, is he the new Billy Hamilton? He steals everything. He's got to get on base.
100%. He has 8 at bats, he has 8 strikeouts.
I think we could do that, Scott.
I'm pretty sure we can. I'm gonna lay down a bunt and have an 87% strikeout rate.
Yeah, if I'm him and I'm at the hotel room tonight and I can see that stat, my first at bat is a bunt.
You got to make contact, right? Like that's 100% K rate. It's pretty funny to see. Yeah,
that's rough. Phony front office 99 asks, how are you guys feeling about Dylan Cease? That spin rate is looking legit. He's been better this year, that's for sure.
You're someone that I wasn't really in on. I tend not to be in on guys who I really, really worry about the walks. And, sometimes that bites me. I get that. But it's weird how much the strikeouts have bumped up. What is he? He was 17.5% last year. He's 29% right now. But the walks are still there. He's walking 4.4 guys per 9. I think that if I have him, I'm certainly holding him right now. But he's not someone that I'm not going to buy high on. I know the ERA is 2.4, and he's looked really good. And the team is really good, too. Unless La Russa does something stupid and blows them up. But, he's got some home run luck right now. He was a guy that gave up a lot of home runs the last couple of years. And he's like at a 0.65 home runs per 9 guy right now. The home runs for fly ball are 7% after they were 18 and 21. So I think some bad luck's coming his way. I think that he's more solid than I thought he'd be. I kind of take the loss on that one, but probably not someone I'm looking to acquire high right now.
No, I was with you in draft season. Cause I knew the talent was good. The stuff was good, but the wildness, the ineffectiveness was scaring the snot out of me. And
that's guys that throw that hard, at some point it just takes the one thing for it to come. But it's interesting. He's down 1.5 miles on his fastball. You wonder maybe if that's the thing, or he's just pulling back a little bit, trying to have a little more command, which is probably a really good thing. Because if you throw 96, that's going to be good enough.
So good.
Yeah. I mean, and he's throwing a slider just as hard. So I wonder if it's kind of a thing pulling back a little bit, trying to control that pitch a little more.
Definitely could be something. Drew at Fru_Dorte asks, is Brendan Rogers a difference maker rest of the season in a 12-team league? Because he is coming back soon, but it is the Rockies, Scott.
That's the answer I was going to give. It is the Rockies. I just wonder, what are you looking for from Brendan Rogers? Like, even if you look at the AAA numbers are so insane. They play in such a hitter's park. I know he hit 350 there in 2019, but I don't know. He showed some pop in 2018 in AA. I don't trust the Rockies. Where does he play right now? Hampson's in center. You got McMahon, you got CJ Cron at first. I just don't know where he fully fits in right now. So I think that if he plays every day, sure, it's exciting. I don't know if he can stay on the field either. I mean, he's a guy that always something going on. I know the injuries sometimes are fluky, but it seems like there's always something with Brendan Rogers for the last couple of years. If you can stash him in a deeper league, I think you do it. But I mean, he swings and misses a lot. The swing strike rate in the majors was 15.5% when he came up in 2019. And then we came in 2020, but that was only 21 plate appearances. But I don't know. I'm not super excited about it. But yeah, I mean, prospect pedigree, these guys eventually, these guys that are that super prospect usually hit at some point. But I don't know. If I could stash him in a deep league, maybe, but it's not someone I'm like really trying to get aggressively right now.
Yeah, I like Brennan Rogers as the player, but we just don't know. Like you said, where's he going to play? When's he going to play? How long is he going to play? If they trade Trevor Story, then yes, I think he's going to be a very interesting aspect. But
and they very well may do that. I mean, they have zero chance in that division. There's now 3 really good teams ahead of them, and they're so far away from being good, and they're such a mess right now. And the Arenado trade was so weird as it was, but they got to trade Story. I hate to see it. I have Trevor Story in the main event, and taking him out of Coors will suck, but I think putting him in a great lineup will be a good thing anyway. But I don't know. Got to pull the trigger at some point on him because I just can't fathom they signed him a long-term deal right now.
No, they can't do it. Rob DiPietro, the Deadpool hitter, he asks, NFBC second chance leagues, what's your strategy for the first couple of rounds?
So I'm terrible at this because I don't play second chance leagues. I never have. I'm just one that I have my teams. I know how much time it takes me to run my teams. And I probably usually don't add to that mix in the midseason, but yeah, I mean, I think the obvious strategies you want to get guys who are, first and second round picks who are struggling that are maybe third and fourth round picks, but I think everybody's going to do that. So some of those guys go out the window, but it's weird. It's hard right now. I mean, usually we're so worried about pitcher injuries and the first 2 rounds is all hitter injuries. Like everybody's out at the top, but yeah, I mean, I'm just, I'm probably trying to get guys who are playing well, but not way over their head right now. You want guys that are healthy, looking good, but not someone who's going crazy. And, that's probably a strategy everybody uses, but I'm probably not the best person for that because I never end up playing them. So I just don't, I have my time on Sunday that I spent on Fab, and I'm just not looking to add to it at the moment because I'm trying not to get divorced.
Yeah, 100% with you. That's the best way to say, I already am running the tightrope as it is.
Oh, yeah.
I think throwing anything else into the table is probably a bad idea.
Yeah.
But and Rob is funny because he's in a group chat I'm in, and someone asked about, hey, you guys signing up for the Memorial Day leagues, and he says, are there any DCs? Because I can't take on more Fab either. So, there you go. Yeah,
Rob appears to be the nicest guy in the world. I was on Jeff and I did his podcast. Jeff Erickson, I did his podcast in the preseason. He seems to be like the nicest dude ever. So I'm looking forward to in-person drafts next year. If we can get everybody out to Vegas in March, even if you don't draft main event, I get main events really expensive. Like you can argue that on Twitter all you want, but if you come out for the weekend and just hang out, it is such a fun time. And I know there's some NFBC, anti-NFBC stuff. There's none of that in Vegas. Like everybody just hangs out. It's fun. Anybody can get out there for live drafts, even if you're not drafting a really expensive team. It's a really fun time. And I'm one who's really bad at meeting people the first time I meet them, and it's never been an issue. Everybody's so nice and fun. It's great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think I might try to sneak out if I can because I'm not going to be pulling the main event trigger, but I've heard rumblings they might start doing some live OCs potentially during the same deal.
They have in the past, and it's always kind of a weird thing. Is it worth renting the rooms for all that, for that kind of stuff? But they've tried to get the high stakes 12 and just kind of never stick. So if they did some OCs, it'd be fun. But even if you don't, getting out there, I know people that come out and they draft main event, but they do it online the week before. They just come out to hang out. It's just it's a really good time full of really good and nice people.
Yep, I'll try to make that work for sure. The last question we have here is from Tim Wyatt. He asked, besides Wander Franco, what other prospects are worth stashing that we could see? And I'm kind of like you, as I'm bad at this. I don't like stashing prospects, but Manoah's there. There's a couple other guys.
Yeah, I'm not the best at this either because I'm not really a prospect guy. I play mostly redrafts, so I'm and I play NFBC mostly, so I don't really have to stash them because you can't pick guys up until they add the 40-man roster. But I mean, I guess you're looking at someone like Jaron Duran right now in Boston he's hitting for Worcester, hitting really well. He's got 5 home runs and 3 stolen bases already. So he's probably someone that the second, there's some rumblings about calling him up. If you're going to stash him, it's probably too late for a name like that right now. Alec Manoah, I picked up, and I do have one daily league that I play, Yahoo Friends and Family with a bunch of industry people. And I picked up Manoah a couple weeks ago. I think they have to put him in Stripling's spot. I know that there's been some stuff. I think Pitcher List had an article that they don't think they're going to do it right away, but man, after Stripling was so bad again this week, and Manoah is really good. I think it was last night that Manoah pitched again. And then Steven Matz was bad again tonight too. The Jays are so close to being really good. Just a matter of getting a little bit of starting pitching. And I think they'll probably trade for someone too. I think they're a prime team for that. But their offense is starting to click. Vladdy looks like an MVP guy right now. And just, if they get Springer back, that's a team that 1 or 2 starting pitchers, and they might be a legit contender to go deep in the playoffs too. And I think that I think Manoah, another good start. I think it was last night or Tuesday night AAA. I think he's a guy that I'd be attacking right now. Jaron Duran. I just don't know where the Red Sox would play him right now, but they like Kike Hernandez probably more than anybody else does. It seems like they really like him. I like him, but like they're hitting the weight off every day. Yeah, they really love the guy, and I think he's a good locker room guy too. I think that helps a lot too. But Duran and Manoah are probably like at the top of that list right now that I'd probably look at. And then people always ask me about A's pitchers too, and I don't Dalton Jeffrey's got hurt too, so I don't think that's really a thing right now. James Caprillion I think looked really good in his first start, and I picked him up in a couple deeper leagues just because starting pitcher with a pulse on a good team, pitches in a good park. If you're in a 12-teamer, Caprillion was not picked up last week. I think watch his start tomorrow night against the Angels. He pitches well again next week. I think he might solidify that spot. Luzardo's still just starting to throw from 60 feet. He's still 3 or 4 weeks away. They're going to be really cautious with him. Mike Fiers is bad and hurt, so there's that combo too. I think Caprilion's a guy that can have a little bit of a runway to maybe start the next 3 or 4 weeks, and someone that looked good kind of makeup-wise and pitch-wise. I know he struggled a couple of those innings. He could have been really bad. Like the first and fifth inning were really bad. He got out of them. He got really lucky, but I think he kind of showed me something. He had some strikeout pitches there too that looked good. He's a guy that's been so injured. I'd love to see him get a chance. I think he does have one right now on a good team in a good park. So he's probably someone that is up already, but I'd look at this week and maybe look to pick at 12ers this week.
Yeah, no, that's a good call. When I've looked at these lists before, most of them are in the American League. So that's one thing to give you guys a heads up. Just don't even look at the National League prospects. And
that's weird. I wonder why that is. That's strange.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's just like we were going through them a couple weeks ago or something, and it's like I think 9 out of 10 were all in the American League. It was really bizarre. But in the grand scheme of things, most of these guys aren't coming up anytime soon unless a team's very desperate. So just keep that.
Can I ask you about a guy that kind of fits in here?
Oh, yes, please do it. I think I know where you're going.
No, you probably don't. What the heck do you do with Bobby Witt Jr.?
Okay, well, that's a great question.
Because there's a lot of people like it was weird. Him. Like we drafted if you drafted late March, the main event's all in late March. He was like rumblings of him breaking camp with the team. And then Mondesi misses the first 8 weeks and he still doesn't get called up. So like any of those rumblings were clearly BS because they had a perfect time to use him. Nicky Lopez is not good. The fact they didn't call him up now means they clearly were never going to call him up. Like he was never going to break camp. And I get it. He had very few at bats in rookie ball in 2019. So they never really seen him. But what do you do if you own in Witt in either a 12 or 15 teamer right now? What do you do with him?
I think you have to hold for now, but it's terrifying because Adalberto's coming back soon. He's starting to rehab already. And if he stays healthy, which is an if, there's a big if. He's going to obviously play every day. So where does he go from there? Because, Nicky Lopez is bad. I said the second Mondesi got hurt, why don't you let Witt get major league at bats? And I got roasted for it by so many prospect people. That was a bad idea. But they said Nicky Lopez is seasoned and better. I was like, okay, whatever you say.
At what?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I said. Like what, holding his glove on his hand? I don't know. But it's
but you
bad.
You look at the team though, and like you're like, oh, we'll just put Merrifield in the outfield. But they got Benintendi, they got Soler, they got Michael Taylor, who's not great, but plays
the job done.
Yeah, and plays some good defense out there. And you still have Hunter Dozier coming back. You got to find a spot for him. Like they're a weird team, and they're not full of superstars, but they got a little bit of depth. And if they weren't going to call up Witt when Mondesi was out, I don't know. It's a weird situation right now that's hard to kind of figure out.
You almost have to drop him. It feels like if Mondesi gets hurt again, maybe they do it because then it's June or July, maybe. But by then, you might have needed that roster spot for sure. So it's tricky. It's real tricky. Like this is why I didn't draft him to begin with because I just hate this headache. Yeah. But
and not only that, hitting a $173 so far in 20
gives them an excuse.
It does. That's the thing. It's a 60 plate appearances. Who cares? He has 6 stolen bases, which is sweet. But just gives them an excuse to be like, we told you he had 37 games at rookie ball. He needs some seasoning. And I don't know. I think like All-Star break's the earliest for him.
Yeah, I'm thinking it might even launch into September at this pace.
Who did you think I was going to ask you about? Luciano
or Helio Ramos?
Okay.
I love those kids. Like that's why, as a Giants fan, I told you I wasn't looking forward to this year. I'm like a year or two away, going, this is gonna be fun. But Luciano hit 2 more homers yesterday. Like it's. I got to get to San Jose. He's
probably
quick.
a 22-2 guy though, right?
Yeah. I got to get to San Jose quick. He's in low ball. There's like 4 guys down there in low A right now. Whew, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
That's a fun little park. I used to like going to games there.
Yeah. I love going there. Yeah. I'm kind of mad that the whole trends now they're low A instead of high A, which kind of stinks, but is what it is.
Yeah.
So. Major League Baseball is a whole another podcast.
Oh yeah, we could do hours on that.
Yeah, but we'll wrap it up there, Scott. It is always a pleasure chatting with you. Before we take off, again, remind everybody what you got going on and where they can find you.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. Always fun to talk baseball with you. You can find us on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball podcast Sunday night / Monday morning, depending on where you are, what time zone you're in. But we usually post that about 10:30 or 11 o'clock on Sunday night, so it's ready for everybody's stream on Monday morning. Talking a lot of weekend stuff, wrapping up Fab, and we talk a lot of NFBC, but most of that stuff goes for all leagues, and we try and hit 12s and 15s. So kind of any depth you're in, we can work on. And then Tuesday afternoons, I'm doing the gaming golf podcast with Jeff Ritter and Jeff Erickson, to talking whatever the golf tournament is coming up, to talking there. But other than that, you can find me on Twitter at Scott Jenstad, always talking about baseball. Once the Warriors are out, I'll talk a lot more baseball. I apologize for all the Steph Curry tweets, my favorite athlete, and I'm a big Warriors fan. But so if you can just mute me on those, we can talk a lot of baseball. But a lot of good fun talk on there. I love talking baseball there, so definitely hit me up on there. Follow me on there. I don't always post a ton, but I definitely will respond and talk baseball with you if you reach out. So it's always a good resource for that.
Yeah, Scott's one of the good ones, so make sure you take him up on that offer. And also, don't apologize. Curry is worth every tweet. Like, the dude is. I remember when the season started out, the Warriors were supposed to be nothing because of all the injuries, and look what he's done. Like, it's ridiculous.
these last 2 months have been like just the most fun. Watching one guy. I mean, it's not as 2016, 2015 was still the most fun because that team was so good. But this 2-month run has been unlike anything I've seen. He takes shots that nobody should ever take, and they go in. It's just. I just kind of roll. My wife's like, "You're not excited about that?" I'm like, I just don't. I don't know how he made that shot. It was a terrible shot. It just goes in. It's
he should never have taken that shot. No. He should be benched right now for taking that shot. Like, his dad is probably yelling, like, "I would have benched you, son."
and it goes in 3 times in a row. You're just like, all right, whatever. I mean, there's nobody in the world that can shoot it, but you should do it. And it's been a lot of fun. A great guy. Like, it's just been a blast. So it's been a fun little run here, and hopefully they can win tomorrow night and at least give Utah a little bit of a scare, but it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, they're gonna win. They're gonna play Utah. It's gonna be fun. The Spider versus Curry will be a good time. So
Utah's lost 4 times at home all year or something like that. It's really tough. I think they had a better shot against Phoenix, maybe to go 6 or 7 games, but Utah's gonna be tough. But I hope they get there. I think more Curry games are good, and I think Adam Silver agrees with me on that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if somehow it goes 6. Just nice. Throwing it out there. Yeah. We know how the NBA operates.
Are you an NBA conspiracy guy? You sound like
I'm a diehard Sacramento Kings fan, so yes.
Oh God,
I was at those games.
That one game is about as much of a travesty as there's been. I'm not a conspiracy guy at all, and that game was so horrendously ref that you're just like, oh my God, what's going on here?
Yeah, I try to keep it simple. Like, Angel Hernandez is bad and stuff like that. I try to ignore it, but sitting there and watching that game and then seeing the replays of that game, it's like.
I'm the last person in the world to blame refs or blame that, and that was an atrocious game. That is, it's as a Kings fan, they deserve to win one of those. I love that team. I'm never a Kings fan, but that team was so fun to watch.
Yeah, and they're never going to get that again.
I'm glad Weber got the call of the hall, because I think people forget how damn good he was.
He was amazing. That team was good. There's something else, but we'll wrap it up there. Everyone, check out Scott on Twitter at Scott_Jenstad, and obviously, if you listen to this show, everyone listens to the RotoWire podcast. So we're good there.
No underscore though.
Oh, sorry. Scott Jenstad on Twitter. So, yeah, go check that out. You won't find him with the underscore. But everybody, this was Bench with Bubba, episode 372. We'll catch you guys next time.